All right, hello class. My name is Hope Roberts and this is my presentation for book club. So the subject that I plan to teach is biology. The grade level is 7th grade and the topic is human body systems. The CCR standards that we'll be using come from the Mississippi Department of Education. The standard is students will demonstrate an understanding that living things range from simple to complex organisms are organized hierarchically. I don't think I said that right, and function as whole living systems. And the more specific part of that standard that we'll be addressing is to develop and use models to show relationships among the increasing complexity of multicellular organisms, such as cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, organisms, and how they serve the needs of the organism. So how did I choose this text set, including readability? I chose this anchor text because of accessibility and comprehension level. I found this textbook online for free, and it looked a lot like the textbooks that I had when I was in middle school. So I looked through it. It is on a 7th grade reading comprehension level, and it seemed to be able to break down these really complicated concepts into some easy to understand terms. So I feel like students will really be able to understand these concepts better. And I also really like the graphics in it because I'm a very visual person. I love a good graphic. And this textbook has a lot of them. So that's another reason. The supporting texts that I used were Frankenstein and The Baffled Case of the Battered Brain. Now, I chose Frankenstein because it is a classic science fiction novel that I thought that 7th graders would love to read. And I found while I was reading it that it is above their comprehension level, but I also thought that, you know what, I can just have students talk about it during class. They can discuss it in groups, discuss the chapters so they can get a better understanding. We'll discuss the whole thing as a class. One issue that I did find with this book, though, is that it does not have a whole lot of information about human body systems or human anatomy, organs, and stuff like that. So it was really difficult to relate this text back to the anchor text. And while I think that this is still a great book to use for book club, I think it would be better probably for an English class rather than a science class. The other book that I chose is called The Baffling Case of the Battered Brain. And this I really liked. It's a short, fun chapter book about these students who travel in time to learn more about the human brain and the scientists who made these discoveries about the human brain. And it's on a lower comprehension level, and I think that should make it pretty easy for students to understand. And it's got cool pictures, and it's got these biographies about these famous scientists, and I thought it was just a perfect little short, fun, entertaining way to present the knowledge from our anchor text. So I think students really like it too. My vocabulary choices and my rationale for them. These are just some of the vocabulary words that I chose. These are words that I chose because they are the building blocks of the human body. You need to understand these terms in order to understand all of the other texts in the text set. For example, like you need to know what cells are and tissues and organs in order to understand how they function in the nervous system, in the respiratory system, in the circulatory system, etc. A research-based vocabulary strategy that I will be using are graphic organizers. I love a good graphic organizer. This is just a little simple example of one. This is just a basic chart that gives you the definition, where it is in the human body, and a picture of it. Other examples of graphic organizers are like Venn diagrams, concept maps, those kind of things. And I think that these would be really effective for a science classroom because it helps students associate different parts of the body with certain places and helps connect these ideas. So onto my luminary passages. My first one comes from Division 1 of my anchor text, and in the passage that I chose is about body organization. I feel like this is a really important thing to address as a class before we really get into all of the other systems, because this gives a good introduction to all of those body systems. As you can see from this figure here, I really like the figures in this book, as I said, and this one just gives you a good preview of what you're going to be learning over the next few weeks. So I really like this one. The second passage that I chose, it comes from Division 2 of my anchor text, chapter 16 and 17. And the passage that I chose is about the cardiovascular system. So I chose this one because my other two supporting texts, they really address respiration and the nervous system and those kind of things, but we don't really talk much about the cardiovascular system. And I feel like that is really important for us to address as well. So this is a graphic, an example of the flow of blood through the heart. I think this gives a really good outline to how blood is pumped through the body. And that's really important for all of the systems to work. So addressing it as a class really reinforces the importance of these concepts. The third passage that I chose comes from Division 3, chapter 18 in the text, Reproduction and Development. And the passage that I chose is the one about human reproduction. So this is kind of a touchy subject in a science class, but I feel like students, especially middle school students who are just starting to get to that age where they're starting to ask questions about the human body, like about human reproduction and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like having a discussion about it in an open, honest, mature scientific way is a good way for students to be introduced to these kind of ideas. And as you can see here, I have a pretty good graphic of how genes are passed down. The fourth passage that I chose comes from The Baffling Case of the Battered Brain. It comes from page 71 and 72 about Paul Broca. And you can actually, this is the entire text from this passage. It's very short, but there's a lot of different passages like this in this book. It has a bunch of little biographies about scientists. And I think this was a really good choice for a luminary passage because it gives us a different kind of format of text that students aren't really used to reading in a science classroom, a biography. And I thought that that would be really interesting for students to learn more about scientists because it's really important to know these type of who made these discoveries, and it's really interesting information. So my discussions questions, these are just a few of my discussion questions. These are the discussion questions I would go over when we're talking about the nervous system. And most of them come directly from the text, so it should be pretty easy for students to have to look back and reread the text in order to find the answer to these questions. I would also ask questions to kind of test their knowledge of how the nervous system works, for example. For example, I would say, how does the brain tell your legs to move? And students would have to use their comprehension of how neuron signaling works to tell me like, well, there's neurons firing in the brain that tells your legs to move and stuff like that. So that would be able to test their knowledge, and they won't be able to just go back in the text and look for that. They have to just understand how it works in order to understand those type of questions. A research-based comprehension strategy that I plan to teach, as I was saying, I am planning to use graphic organizers to organize the vocabulary. And graphic organizers are a way to visualize and organize your key concepts and information. This whole chart comes from adlit.com or adlit.org, whatever, and gives you a bunch of different strategies. And as we can see, we're using the visualizing and organizing whenever we use our graphic organizers. And a writing strategy activity that we plan to use is raft writing. So raft writing is a way for students to think creatively and think differently from the way that they would usually write an essay. You'd have to consider a topic from a different perspective and practice writing for different audiences. So a prompt that I thought of was just students will write a thank you letter to any part of the body they choose. They will thank that body part for all the hard work it does, stating specific examples of how it helps that person. I just thought this was kind of a cute little prompt to do. It makes students think about the different body parts and what they do and how they help you as a person. So I thought that that would be a way to get students to really think creatively and critically about the lessons that we have gone over through book club. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed. I can't wait to see yours. and I will talk to you guys later. All right.